Welcome, everyone. My guest today is a recruiter from one of the largest organizations on the planet, Amazon. And I am so happy to have him here, Tony Lyons, who also is an alum from the college that I went to. So I love having that connection and us being able to help each other
Mhm.
throughout our careers. So, Tony, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast and sharing all your recruiting knowledge with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
All right, we're just going to jump right in because I
Absolutely.
know people are going to want to know
Yeah.
about
Get to the good stuff.
Amazon and the process and all of that.
Absolutely.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your experience in
Hmm.
recruiting and talent acquisition, your
Hmm.
organization, which
Right.
most people know of at this
Yeah.
point, and some of the positions that you typically recruit for?
Absolutely. So I'll start out with my background. I initially got into recruitment talent acquisitions with Macy's as a recruitment operations specialist. I was there from about 2018 all the way to 2019. Got my real estate license, did some real estate work, and I missed recruiting. Once you do recruiting, you miss the grind, you miss how rewarding it is. And so I applied at Amazon, started out as a recruiting coordinator, and then I got promoted to a technical recruiter. And so that's how I got led to Amazon. Yeah, I recruit for software development engineers who are level 5. So the positions that I recruit mostly for are SDE 2.
What does that mean?
So, absolutely. SDE2s, they are computer engineers. They have a bachelor's degree in computer science or some type of computer related, degree. They work with computer languages and programs such as C Sharp, React, Java, Script. Those may be foreign to someone who's looking at this who isn't in the computer science field, but there's just no other way to dumb it down. But it's a computer science role.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, the roles that I typically recruit for, um, they usually have about 4 years of experience already. So I'm taking them junior level.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for
Yes,
for explaining that
absolutely.
for those
Oh
of us
yeah.
who don't know all of kind of the
Yes.
internal language of that.
Yes. And trust me,
Okay.
I had to learn so many computer languages and roles. There's so many computer science positions. I'm just like, okay. So yeah, I had a learning curve too. So
Yeah, yeah. You know what's so funny? I used to work with financial engineers at a
mhm,
job that I had, which is essentially a lot of the same technology that the computer science people use, but on the finance side, and they build models and they do all this like crazy stuff. And I had
mhm.
to learn all of that too. I was like, I have no idea what any of these
Right.
things do.
But you see how crazy how fast we learn it though, how fast we pick it up.
Right, right. It's like you can hold like a decent conversation about what it is, but if you ask
Exactly.
us how to do it, it's like, nope.
Exactly. Exactly. I always tell my candidates, I know what you do. I just don't know how to code.
There it is. There it is. There it
So,
is. Okay, so let's talk about the great resignation because that is
mhm,
such a hot topic right now.
mhm,
And even though it seems like you're recruiting for more junior level, I would love to
mhm.
know like, has this impacted your recruiting at all, or do you see it impacting your recruiting in the future?
Um, so I'll start off by saying no, it has not impacted in terms of the great resignation because I recruit people are who have the experience. So if I'm sourcing and I see someone who has at least 4 years of experience, I go ahead and reach out to them. Now, I want to go ahead and call it the great reshuffle because in my line of work, it's not that they don't want to work. They just don't want to go into the office. They want to stay at home. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, you go from waking up early in the AM, getting your car, sitting in traffic, going to work and hanging out with people who you may or may not like, and then having a tough day sitting in your car in traffic once more, and then you get home, you barely have any time to spend with yourself or your family. So now we get to the COVID era, unfortunately. However, it did benefit, the work from home aspect, because now people are spending more time with their family. They're able to prioritize things in their life a lot more, so the work life balance kind of shot up. And
Hmm.
so one of the things Amazon has done was allow, remote positions. And so that makes my job easier. So with the great reshuffle, it really hasn't impacted my job. It's a lot harder to, kind of push people into the offices for headcount space, for headcount
Hmm.
sake. But other than that, no, it really hasn't impacted my line of work.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder too, do you think that's because you're recruiting more on the technical computer
Mhm.
science side? Because I know I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of people, do
Mhm.
certifications, go back to school.
Mhm.
Like it's kind
Yeah.
of re energizing the technical skill
Mhm.
that you would be recruiting for. Do you think that that's some of it, or are you primarily looking at people who have done 4 years of
Mhm.
CS and then now they're in the workforce a little bit?
It is a little bit of both, but with the positions that I do recruit for, it is very, very strict. We are somewhat lenient, but it is very strict on, we need you to have that 4+ years of experience. We need you to know the languages of the, that we need you to know. And you need to possess a bachelor's degree. There's no if, ands, or buts about that. Even if you do have licenses and certifications, you do need to possess a bachelor's degree. And you can have a bachelor's degree in English. um, as long as you have experience with the computer languages and you've
Okay.
worked large scale corporations such as, I'll say, Capital One or Meta, you know, you have that large scale distribution under your belt, then we take a look at you and then we'll bring you on.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
basically what it, yeah.
Oh, that is really helpful because I know
Hmm.
as a career coach, I'm
Yeah.
seeing all of these, ads and
Hmm.
different things for all of these
Hmm.
certifications. And my feelers go up around,
Hmm.
are people really recruiting out of those programs, which they might. I mean, it's
Hmm.
very well that
Yes. Oh,
there are
absolutely.
certain companies that are
Hmm.
recruiting out of it, but it's
Yep.
not necessarily going to be some of your
Hmm.
top tier companies.
Right.
They
And I will
still
say
want
this. I
experience.
will say this with that, um, with those certifications, those are more in line with SDE one, which is the same thing as an SDE two, except SDE twos they have a little bit more of a senior role, whereas they mentor the SDE ones. And so people with um, no bachelor's degree, if they have an associate's degree and they have a certification, then they may be more in line with an SDE one. It's
Okay.
not guaranteed, but you have a chance at least setting your foot in the door with an interview. I'll
Okay.
say that. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
thank you. So helpful. I really
Yes.
love the clarity there. Okay,
Yes.
so let's talk about the hiring cycle, which I know,
Hmm.
when we get into more like mid-career or even
Hmm.
slightly early career, there's not always a hiring cycle because sometimes it's, just dependent on what's open. But do you
Hmm.
guys have either like a set hiring cycle or maybe times
Hmm.
where you tend to see more of an influx of hiring? What does that look like at Amazon?
We see an influx. I mean, I would say early February, early March. That's what my leaders have told me. I haven't been with the company that long. I've been with the company since June. So I've only seen it since June till now. Um, so yeah, there is an influx. And then I want to talk about the hiring process.
Sure.
So as a recruiter, I reach out. I hardly ever look at applications. I send out the application. Crazy.
Okay,
I
I
count for
love this
application.
perspective because I have not heard this yet.
Hmm.
So I would like to
Yeah.
know more, please.
Right. So when I source, I get the best candidate that I think, I find them, I ask them if they're interested, go ahead and send them out an application. If they complete the application, I go ahead and send them out a 2-hour coding assessment. Once that is completed, we then move to a phone interview. And we kind of get some information about them, their background, and then we have an interviewer who codes with them, and to see if they're at that bar, that level that Amazon hires for. Um, and then after that, they go to an on-site, which is a 4 interview loop, and it's 45 minutes each interview with 15-minute breaks. And
That's
then
so
after
nice.
that, yeah, and then after that, they go to the team that they, you know, applied for.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the
Um,
hiring process.
can you tell me more about the sourcing process for you? Like, is that
Okay.
LinkedIn? Is that through whatever application portal you guys already have? Like, what does sourcing look like on your end?
It is through everything, everything that I can get my hands on. LinkedIn, whether it's Google, it's a wide variety because I can easily go to Google and search software development engineer with 4+ years experience, um, MIT, Georgia Tech, all and it brings up so many results. It's endless.
Hmm.
And so I primarily source with LinkedIn, and that brings the most success.
Okay. Okay.
LinkedIn is great on many aspects, and not just sourcing and recruiting. Um, LinkedIn is great.
Okay, so let's talk about LinkedIn for a second. We're going to talk
Uh-huh.
about resumes and interviewing in a
Yeah,
minute,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm such a proponent of LinkedIn, and I always tell my candidates and my candidates, my clients and listeners to, have your LinkedIn, make sure it's filled out, all of
Please.
that. What are some of your tips, especially from the back end, and the sourcing side? Like, what are you looking for? What do you want people to have on their LinkedIn profile?
Honestly, just have the updated information, because some people will say that they're, and I'm talking from a technical point now, a technical perspective. So some candidates will have, oh, I was a software engineer here for a year, and then 2 years at this company, and then 3 years at this company, but they don't list what types of projects or work or metrics that they've done. And don't just put the company that you work for with the title and the years. Go ahead and place your metrics. Go ahead and place what projects you have accomplished. You don't have to put your whole job description. Just put the meat and potatoes. And that gives us an overview, and it saves us a phone call. Because sometimes I look at a LinkedIn profile, and I'm like, okay, you worked here, you worked here, you worked here, and you went to school here. You know these languages. Okay, so I still got a call to make sure, you were doing these things. What were you doing in each role? Because you may have been doing just a specific language in one role at a company, but doing something completely different in another role. So make sure you have your metrics and all of the projects and things of that sort to make yourself stand out, because a lot of people don't do
Oh my gosh. Okay. I hope everybody who's listening, I
it.
hear
Yes,
this.
yes,
We're going to pull this clip. It's going to be all over the social media because
yes.
that is the one, like that's one of my biggest pet peeves
Hmm.
is people list their positions, they
Hmm.
don't put any content. They don't
No,
put
not at
anything
all.
there.
It's blah.
And it's crazy. And then
Hmm.
on the back end,
Hmm.
I had a friend of mine who shared like the sourcing side
Hmm.
of LinkedIn, and you
Hmm.
can search by so many keywords and all of that, and it
Hmm.
searches your entire profile.
Yep,
And I'm like,
it does.
fill it out.
Yep, it's like an X-ray.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yep,
Thank you for sharing that because
absolutely.
I feel like people
Yeah,
need to hear it from the recruiters, that
they yeah.
You're
And
sourcing,
then
you're
some
using
people I talk to,
LinkedIn.
they're like, oh, I didn't think I really had to do all that. I'm like, well, do it. Just do it. Not for our sake, but for your own sake. It'll literally get you a job.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Okay,
know.
good. Oh, I love hearing that. So good.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so we've talked about sourcing and it sounds like that's
Mhm.
primarily what you're doing. Can we talk a
Yes.
little bit about ATS, the application tracking system? I
Hmm.
know Amazon uses that. Like
Hmm.
what what are you guys doing with that? If you do primarily sourcing,
Hmm.
should people still be submitting through the ATS? Like what is your process like there?
Yes, they have a dedicated team who does look at the ATS, and I'll talk a little bit more about how you should tailor your resume once we get to that part of the discussion. But we do have an ATS system, and we still have people go through all of the applications that hit that mark. And I'll talk a little bit more about that once we get to the resume tip. So yes, please still submit applications and please submit them in PDF.
Oh, good. Okay, good tip. Good. Good tip.
PDF.
So what I think is so important about this too that you mentioned is there are people at the other end of this.
Hmm.
And I was talking with somebody else that I interviewed about how like recruiters are people,
Hmm.
and the ATS system is a tool that
Hmm.
if there is nobody there to process the information, nothing actually happens. And
Hmm.
so I love that you're sharing this because I think it's a good
Yes,
reminder to candidates that there are people that are looking, there are people that are sourcing and
yes,
going through your content
absolutely.
and your information.
Mhm.
So,
And a part of our job as a sourcer is to look through the applicant tracking system and find the applications that do meet the criteria that we're looking for. So that is another part of my sourcing tools with LinkedIn and my other searches. So
okay. Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's get into the resume tips. What are
Sure.
what are your top like 3 or honestly however many you want to share
Uh,
tips for resumes?
I would say one of the biggest is your keywords. Okay, look at the job description for the job you're applying for. And this is just not, the tech industry. This is for any job, corporate, okay, or even if you're applying for a fast food job. Always match the job description with your resume because I know how some companies have two of the same roles but completely different job titles. So at a different company at X, you could be a talent acquisition specialist, but your job is to recruit. But
Right.
at company Y, your title is an actual recruiter, and that's what your actual job description is. So when you apply from X to Y, just match that title and match the keywords that you see in the job description over to your resume. And when you do that, that leads me to my second biggest thing, which is really make sure you hone in on the metrics and the key projects that you helped implement or any type of work process change that you help strategize and implement, but really make bold the metrics. So, say
Mm,
for instance, you are applying for a role as a customer service specialist, and in your previous role, you helped increase the survey count by 40%. So you're going to make it bold. I helped strategize and implement a higher um, customer customer service survey by 40%.
mm.
And so with that, I'll go to my third point, which is exclude all the irrelevant stuff. You know, okay. Uh, Yes, just leave the good, juicy things that you did for the company, exclude the relevant stuff, and most importantly, do not lie. Because if they see
Mm.
something really, 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 you really juice up your resume and you really put something in there like this might be a stretch, but I'm gonna go ahead and put it. They're gonna ask you about that because that's some of the good stuff that they ask. And if you aren't able to, really give a good story on how you did it, they're gonna be like, Okay, did you really do that, or
Right.
was that a stretch? So, and
Right.
I've seen it happen. So,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
what
Okay,
are the three
so
biggest?
one of the things that I tell clients is just because it's important to you doesn't mean it's
Mhm.
important to the employer.
Right, absolutely. Yeah,
When you're
yeah,
going through the content of your
hmm
resume, like
yeah,
half when I don't edit resumes too much anymore, except if you're a
hmm
current client. And
hmm
I'll go through it and I'm like, don't care, don't care, don't care, don't need
hmm
it, don't need.
yeah,
I mean, that's half
hmm
the process. Is this
exactly,
does not matter because this job description says nothing about half
exactly.
of this stuff that you have in here. Take it out.
Whatever you see on the job description that you have done in your current role, put it in there, copy the keywords, and leave the metrics in there, and just take everything else out that you don't see on the job description.
Yes, yes,
And that'll help you with the ATS.
because it'll match up the
Yep,
language.
exactly.
Awesome.
Yep.
One of the other things you talked about was changing titles.
Yes.
And I really appreciate that you said this because
hmm
this is also something I advise people to
hmm
do
Yeah.
because companies are creating
hmm
weird titles,
Yes.
weird.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if it's not common, if the
hmm
phrasing isn't common, it's not gonna get through anywhere. And especially
Yeah.
with LinkedIn, I will tell people change your title to like the most common basic
Yes. The most common
version of
thing.
what you do.
Dude, yeah.
And if you're worried about somebody from your company seeing it in your description of what you
hmm
do, just put internal title and then put whatever the weird title is that they gave you.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I had a client where we had to change her titles multiple times because LinkedIn wasn't
hmm
presenting her with the right opportunities,
Right.
and she was actually getting outreach by different recruiters
Right.
sourcing people, and it
hmm
wasn't the right type of position
Mm.
because that title
Title.
wasn't
hmm
quite right. it was
Exactly.
just
Yep.
it was
It makes a
crazy.
huge difference, and you'll see, like, okay, people are starting to reach out to me more about my, position. People, when you're a recruiter, you're searching the most common, things. And now, if you're a really good recruiter, such as myself, then those other titles that could be weird and thrown in there, and you look those up as well. But if you want to be on the top of every recruiter's search, make sure you have the most common, you know, you know, title that they're looking for. And
Yes,
it's just as
yes.
easy as a Google search.
Awesome. Ah, I
Yep.
love it. This is so great. I'm so excited for
Yes.
all these tips.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's talk about interviewing now because I
hmm
know that that's something that, makes everybody nervous and,
hmm
they want to know what to expect. So, what are some
Yeah.
of your tips? And if you can share some of the process from Amazon, that would be great. But I
hmm
also know we can't always share all the ins and
Right.
outs.
Right. Well, one of the top things, and this is easily researchable, but the top things is the STAR method. Have your situation, your task, action, and the result. Keep it concise and to the point. Leave in those metrics. Okay. So the first point I'll say is, please, please research the company. I know sometimes you may get reached out by a recruiter and you didn't specifically apply to the company, but during the interview process, they're going to expect you to know at least something about the company, because even if they don't ask you anything, ask them about the company because that makes it look like you researched, the company.
Right.
So always, always, always research the company. And of course, you want to know, about the company that you're working for, all the things that they've done. It's a good icebreaker as well. Secondly, I would say, as in resume tips, always mention the metrics when they ask you a question about, and this is a good way to eliminate follow up questions, because how I started doing in my interviews, I started mentioning the key data and metrics of every project that I had completed. And they would just move on to the next question. They won't sit there and, harp over, okay, so what did you do? Like, what was the tag? Stick to the STAR method, mention the metrics, and keep it concise. So, That's one of the biggest things. Mention the key data and metrics, keep it concise. And then just be yourself and be upbeat and charismatic. And if you're someone who's an introvert, set up, everyone has a laptop or a smartphone. Take your smartphone, prop it up or your computer, and open up the webcam and practice interview questions. That's what I did in high school when I wanted to get a job. Practice interview questions. I'm sorry, not high school, college. I took it all the way back to high school. I meant college. That's what I did in college when I was, started to seek out, internships and corporate positions. So practice, 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 and work on being yourself and being upbeat. And I kid you not, and not to toot my own horn, but anytime I go into an interview, I am just not nervous, like at all. Like I think it's I think of it as a challenge. I'll say,
Mm.
okay, what can I pull out of them this time? What can I do to make them stand out and things like that? So
And I found that people who are confident going into the interview process, it's because they're very clear about who they
yes.
are, what
Hmm.
they've accomplished, they
And what they
know
bring.
about the company.
Yep.
All of that information is what
Hmm.
gives you that
Yep.
energy and that boost
Yeah.
to interview and feel
Yep.
okay. So if you are feeling
Hmm.
really extra nervous,
Yep.
it's likely
Hmm.
that there's something missing in
Yeah.
terms of the information that you've collected, and it could be about
Yeah.
yourself. you know
Absolutely. Uh-huh. And when I say research the company as well, so kind of make it ask questions, is I should say. Ask questions at the end of the interview. You want them to know that you really care about coming onto the team. And don't do, I mean, if you have to and you're rushing, okay, do a Google search of what to ask a company in an interview. I don't think you should do that. I think you should really research the company and tailor the question around what you really want out, what you want from the company. Um, to give you an example, I come from a Christian university. I've been in Christian schools basically my entire life. And so one of the biggest things for me when I go into an interview is not getting fixated on the dollar amount or the total compensation. It's what I can bring to your company as a Christian leader.
Mhm.
And I always ask questions that are tailored around that. I ask questions like, okay, your social responsibility, what's going on there? I see that, in the past 3 years, there's been a decline in the amount of money that you've raised for a certain organization. Why is that? Or I'll ask, so what types of charities would I be able to be involved with at the level that I'll be coming into the company at? Things like that that kind of boast my Christian leadership and my attitude towards not just making the company money, but also making the company a great organization, a great organization wholly, So
Right. Very
yeah.
value centered. It's asking
Yes.
value
Yes.
centered
And a
questions that
lot of companies
align.
appreciate that.
Yeah. And,
Hmm.
I was thinking when you were talking about researching the company and
Hmm.
a company like Amazon, I feel like
Hmm.
my caution with people is just because you use Amazon, like
Hmm.
that's not enough research to
Right.
understand the
Yeah.
organization and the back end
Hmm.
of what they're doing. And I
Yeah.
always tell people like search the news, figure out
Yeah.
what is kind of the latest thing that's being said about Amazon,
Yep. Hmm.
positive or negative.
Yep. Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
that's a really great question to say, hey, I
Hmm.
just read an article that said
Yep.
this. Can you tell me
Hmm.
more about how the company is handling it? Or
Exactly.
something like that, especially if it's something that hits
Hmm.
at your values.
Yep. Because nine
So,
times out of 10, the recruiter or the interviewer knows exactly what you're talking about and they're ready to answer it and have a conversation about
well,
it.
and if they aren't ready and they don't
Mhm.
know, as a
That's one of those.
candidate, that's a really
Mhm.
big red flag, because you
Right.
want people,
Mhm.
like you're interviewing the company too. So you want
Yeah,
them to be
absolutely.
knowledgeable as well.
Yeah. And then too, I've had, some interviews where they're like, let me get back to you on that, or oh, that's a really good question. I will have to bubble it up. I'm just like, you should know this already. How do I know this? You don't. I don't work for the company, you do. But
Right. Right. And it's okay, it's okay to pass on
Yeah.
those
Hmm.
opportunities if you don't feel comfortable
Hmm.
in the knowledge that the person sitting across from you has or doesn't
Exactly.
have.
Hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Great. Oh, okay. I'm loving this. So many good tips.
I love
Okay,
it.
let's talk about cover letters really quick. Do we
Uh,
care about them anymore?
so I'll say this. I don't look at cover letters. People like when people upload their applications, there's never a cover letter. I just look at the meat and potatoes. Now, I'll say if you're going for a senior position, managerial position, like a senior director, even like a senior manager, go ahead and throw in a cover letter. Yes. But other than that, I don't want to sound, because a lot of recruiters love cover letters and a lot of employers love cover letters.
We've got both sides of the spectrum, I will tell
I,
you. I've have people who love them, I have people who hate them and don't look at them, and it
it's a
runs
complete
the
waste of time.
gamut.
It's a complete waste of time. It's a waste of time. If it is sent to me, though, I of course look at it. I look at the cover letter. I look at everything that is in front of me, and I'm very quick. I take 30, 40 seconds, and you know, it's a yes or no. And
Okay.
so, but like more senior positions, like I said, director positions, yeah, send a cover letter. It's more professional for
Right.
those types of positions. Yeah.
Right. So I asked this of another recruiter, and I'm curious what you would say.
Mhm.
For people who maybe are making a shift in their career and they have
Mhm.
some transferable skills, they have experience in maybe another sector or functional area, and they're trying to transition over. Do you think the
Mhm.
cover letter is helpful in those situations, or does that not really apply because you're doing more technical recruiting?
I would think so because you then get to explain how your transferable skills will actually transfer to that job. So, say for instance, a lot of recruiting is just like sales. So, if you're a salesperson trying to become a recruiter, which is actually what I did now that I think about it, I was working at Hertz, Hertz rental car,
Yeah.
selling, upselling, and then I went over to Macy's. Hmm. Um, but yeah, so like if you're a salesperson and you want to do recruiting, it kind of goes, hand in hand because you're trying to entice someone in, you know. It's the art of persuasion and the art of negotiation. So yeah, I would say a cover letter would benefit in terms of transferable skills. But if you're really good at doctoring up your resume, then you won't
Then you
need
shouldn't
that.
need it,
Right. And
basically.
you should have a bio section like right at the top, like 3 or 4 sentences of what you like what you bring as a prospective candidate.
On your resume.
Yeah, I put it at the top. It's called an executive summary. I call it the
Okay.
executive summary.
Okay,
It's
because
just three or four
I've heard
sentences.
mixed. I've heard a lot of
Really.
mixed around
Yeah.
the executive summary. So okay,
Mhm.
so you're pro executive summary.
Yeah, I think it has a nice touch. It doesn't take up
Okay.
too much room. And then I also have it on my LinkedIn profile as well. So in the little about me section that people don't fill out, yeah, I have
I hope everybody is listening. Fill out your LinkedIn.
that. LinkedIn is such it's amazing. And even now that I'm good in the job that I'm in now, and I still get tons of. I know how my candidates feel. I'm in the same position. People are reaching out to me too.
Right.
I know how you feel. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Oh my
just the
gosh.
beauty of having a good LinkedIn profile. So
Yes. Yes. That's what I love.
yes, and
Okay,
hashtags
so
do work.
oh, really? Oh, good.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
That's good
yes.
to know also.
Believe it or not, LinkedIn has an algorithm. So
Yes. Well, and that's one of the things that I tell people in terms of like the keywords and your titles and
mhm,
all of that. It's still an
yeah,
algorithm that's going to read it. So
mhm,
if you're not getting what
yep,
you want, you have to change something.
yep,
So,
absolutely. Hmm.
good. Okay. What is something that you think job seekers should be doing but aren't doing?
Mm, 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 mm. and I can share an example as well. Please, 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 if you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn and connect. I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna dive deep with this. Connect with people. So if you have a dream, Amazon was my dream company. It still is my dream company until further notice. Um, so I'm happy to say I'm working my dream job right now. And so one of the things that, well, it was a couple companies. It was TikTok and Amazon. And it's kind of crazy how, yeah, I'll go into it. So, so if you have, say, for instance, a dream job, or you know what type of companies you want to work for, and you know what specific department you want to work for. So, say you are wanting to be a recruiter, please look at jobs. And sometimes on LinkedIn, it'll show the job poster, and that is the actual recruiting lead or the hiring manager for that position. Connect with them on LinkedIn. And it's their job anyways to connect with people on LinkedIn. Connect with them on LinkedIn and shoot them a message. Um, in the summertime, this past summer, I was on LinkedIn and I saw a job and follow people who post, like, their whole prerogative on LinkedIn is to post jobs all day, different jobs in the specific, you know, area that you work in. And I followed this person, and then he reposted a job at TikTok for a talent acquisition specialist. And um, it showed who the job poster was. I connected with him. I shot him a message, and he said, "I actually, just filled that position, but what I can do is go ahead and pass you over to another person I work with in recruiting." Got the interview, and by the next week, I was hired. So please, please, please connect with people on LinkedIn. Please, please, please. It'll literally land you a job. I believe I landed the job because the hiring manager of a position referred me to, like, he literally passed my resume over. I didn't even have to apply. I didn't apply for the job. You know, he
Wow.
passed my resume over to a different hiring manager. I had to interview with her and got the job. And that was for TikTok.
Oh
I'll
my
say that.
gosh.
Mhm,
And okay, so and the other side of that too is
mhm.
when you have a full profile,
Yes.
people can go look and they can see and they know.
Yeah.
They
Hmm.
know by looking at your experience, if you have
Hmm.
some of those details, they'll be able to say legit, not legit, pass
Hmm.
it through, you know? So,
Absolutely. Yep.
ah,
Hmm.
yes. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. I hope
So that's my
everybody's
biggest
hearing
tip.
this.
Biggest tip for job seekers right now. Please connect with the hiring managers of positions. I know sometimes, you may not know who the hiring manager is, but look through the job postings and see if the job poster is linked to that specific posting. Connect with them, reach out to them, even buy them a cup of coffee to say, hey, let's have a cup of coffee. I want to talk to you about my experience. If you don't have a job for me, do you know anyone in your company that would have a job for me? It'll go a long way.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Also, a really good way to like start a connection into a company is looking to see if any alumni from your
uh,
school are in that company because
yep.
that's a very natural connection you can make with
Hmm.
some other connection other
Yeah.
than wanting a job in that
Yeah.
company.
And then
So,
and they'll look at the person who is doing the interview and hiring. They'll look at your LinkedIn profile and say, oh wow, so you actually went to school and you know someone from the team already. Okay, like it just gives
mhm.
like a little bit of because people like to work with people who are connected in a way. It's a weird thing, but they do.
Yes,
So,
yes. Oh
so
my gosh. Okay, this has been so amazing. So many great tips. I'm so excited for
yes,
this.
yes,
So, any
yes.
last thoughts or tips that you have that you feel like you need to share that you haven't already?
uh, I'll say be flexible with work from home. In the state of the economy now, we have a lot of openings. Not just talking about my job and the roles that I'm hiring for, but across across there are a lot of job openings, and it's primarily because people want to work from home. if you can do hybrid, I would say do it, but that's another leading cause of what is leading to a lot of the vacancies. People they don't want to go back into the office.
Mhm.
So I would say that, and yeah, just connect with people on LinkedIn, and yeah, biggest
Awesome.
tips. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Tony, if people want to connect with you, is LinkedIn the best way
Yes,
to connect with
LinkedIn
you?
is the best way, and I'm always sharing different tips as well on LinkedIn. If you're a software developer with the experience I talked about for plus years, go ahead and hit me up on LinkedIn. It is Tony Lyons. You just type in Tony Lyons at Amazon, and you'll find me.
Yes,
I think I'm
that's
the only Tony
amazing.
Lyons at Amazon. So type Tony Lyons Amazon on LinkedIn, and you will find me.
Awesome. And I will put a link for your profile into the show
Yes,
notes
yes.
for this
Thank
episode
you.
as well, so you can find
Awesome.
it there. Tony, thank you so much for taking the
Absolutely.
time and sharing all of this. This was definitely more than I was expecting. And I'm
I
so
loved it.
excited for the people that are going to listen to this episode. I really appreciate it.
Yes, yes. Go out there and land your dream job.
Yes,
Thank
wonderful.
you so much.